President Donald Trump delivered a blunt message as he met behind closed doors with Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill today. Sources say that Trump told them to quit negotiating and instead push ahead with his sweeping domestic policy agenda. Infighting among House Republicans is threatening to derail his so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Hardliners are worried that proposed cuts don't go far enough to address the nation's bulging deficit. And even as Trump warned lawmakers not to, quote, F around with Medicaid, according to sources inside the room, some Republicans are still raising issues about potential cuts and the addition of increased work requirements to the program. Today, Trump downplayed those concerns.
Can you guarantee that your voters who supported the election, particularly working class voters, will not lose health insurance under this bill?
Oh, they won't lose health insurance.
You campaigned on lowering the price of groceries. How can you justify cutting food assistance in this bill?
Let me just tell you, the cut is going to give everybody much more food.
CNN's Lauren Fox is covering this from Capitol Hill. Lauren, the president saying that there was a lot of love inside the room at this meeting, but then the Republicans got out of the meeting and essentially said, a lot of them, we can't vote for this bill.
Yeah, I mean, what the president is dealing with is the same conundrum that Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, has been dealing with over the course of his speakership. And that is the reality that he has a very divided conference and a very narrow majority at a moment when everyone is asking for various and conflicting things. He is about to go and meet with members from the New York delegation who are upset because they want to increase the amount that taxpayers in their districts can pay and deduct from their federal taxes for their state and local taxes. That is an issue that they say that they are going to continue fighting for. They got another offer from the speaker last night. It wasn't good enough. Even after the meeting with Donald Trump today, I am told they still are voting against this bill as it's currently written. We're going to see if the speaker can convince them in his office in a couple of minutes to get on board, given the fact that Donald Trump's message was clear today. It is time to put the pens down and get on board with this piece of legislation. We are not going to be arguing about this much longer. The speaker has set this very ambitious deadline of wanting to move this bill by Thursday. By that deadline, the Memorial Day recess that is coming up next week, he has threatened to keep members in town if they can't get there. Obviously, you know, if you keep members in town when they're frustrated, that can cause even bigger issues down the line. But it's really interesting because conservatives are also warning that they're not there yet. Here they are.
I didn't feel attacked in there. I think he was just trying to persuade people who weren't there yet.
Did he change your mind?
Yeah.
No.
Do you feel like the president moved the needle?
The president, I don't think, convinced enough people that the bill is adequate the way it is. Look, the president called for eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, and we have not eliminated waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid in this bill.
And conservatives are arguing that they want to see deeper cuts to Medicaid. This bill already does make some changes to that program, including additional and new work requirements for able-bodied individuals between the ages of 18 and 64. There's also a new regulation that requires that if you are on Medicaid, you re-register every 6 months to make sure people aren't abusing or using the program when they aren't eligible for it. But some of these conservatives want even bigger changes, including the fact that they think the federal government is contributing too much to states when it comes to that Medicaid expansion population. That is something the speaker has said time and time again is off the table. These conservatives still want it, so we'll see whether or not any of that gets brought back into the conversation in the next couple of hours. Meanwhile, at 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, we expect the House Rules Committee to begin deliberating on this bill. That gives the speaker less than 12 hours at this point to get a deal.
We'll see how it goes. Lauren Fox on Capitol Hill, thanks so much.
And I'm joined by a terrific group of reporters here at the table today. CNN's John Berman, Abby Livingston of Puck, Shane Goldmacher of the New York Times, and CNN's Brian Stelter. Abby, I know that you cover Congress for Puck. I'm going to start with you and just pick up where Manu left off on the so-called SALT caucus. These tend to be more of the moderate lawmakers. Some of them maybe are more conservative, but they represent blue states and in many instances swing district. I was told that this SALT caucus went to the House Speaker during the meeting and said point blank, we are still a no. And Mike Lawler, who's a leader of that movement, maybe one of the most kind of on the bubble when it comes to his politics in his district, he said to me, I'm not budging.
I mean, we are in a moment, and moderates of this ilk tend to be the ones who cave on these sorts of bills, and we are just seeing their spine possibly grow stronger. But what we often see, whether it was the Speaker's vote or many of these other difficult whips for the Speaker and the President, is we see a lot of brazen comments, and then these members get on the phone with Trump, and then suddenly their mood changes. So this is an extremely difficult puzzle, and I think one thing to consider is this is Trump's big legacy bill on the legislative end, but this is also a political project of establishing dominance over the Republican Party on Capitol Hill, and this is the ultimate test because he's making them vote against their political interests.
If this time is different, though, it's because they need salt to live. Look, humans need salt to live. It's true. Look it up. And these vulnerable House Republicans need salt to live. They've been promising this relief for years.
Donald Trump promised it. Television in a blue state.
No, it sounds like I'm out myself as a proud New Jersey resident. All right. And all of my neighbors, they are one-issue voters. This is the only issue they care about. They've been promised relief for years. Donald Trump promised relief when he went to Long Island last year. And if they backtrack, if these vulnerable Republicans lose on this issue, if they do give in, if they cave, a lot of voters are going to remember that a year from now.
The next time that moderates stand up will be the first time, right?
Well,
I mean,
exactly.
that's the
That's
thing
right.
here,
That's
as
right.
everyone has noted.
That's
And I
right.
don't want to disparage moderates here because, I don't want them coming after me with little representation. But bottom line is, I hear that they tend to buckle in these negotiations when push comes to shove. The wild card here, though, as Brian was alluding to, is people like Mike Lawler, who is my congressman in New York 17. He wants more than to be a congressman. He wants to expand his power. He may want to run for governor. And one way you do that, if you want to win in a blue state, if you're a Republican, is you buck the president a little bit. And maybe you garner support among independents.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Let's actually listen while we're on the topic of salt, and I love that you need salt to live, Brian.
You do it. Look it up.
Let's listen to specifically what the president said after this meeting on this issue.
Well, salt is a very interesting thing because the governors of New York and Illinois, the big JB who's going nowhere, probably right now he could be the worst governor in the country, but Illinois and Gavin Newsom, those are the people that want this. And they're Democrat states. They're all Democrat states.
That was actually before going into the meeting. So he's focused on the blue states and the governors. But the thing that just is particularly for the politics of this and the raw math, it's the Republican districts or Republican held districts within those blue states, particularly in New York.
That's what's giving them the majority.
That gave them the majority. The Mike Lawlers, the Nick LaLota, who Manu was talking about, those members are the reason why Mike Johnson holds the gavel and that this is even possible in the first place.
I mean, this is the tension in the Republican conference, which is the vast majority of the party is not aligned with this small block of moderates, but it is that small block in California, in New York, in New Jersey that have given Republicans this narrow majority. And so the risk for Trump, who is actually keenly aware of that, issue that they care about, right? He created the law that they're trying to roll back.
And he moved to Florida.
And so he's not subject to it, right?
But
He's been on every side of the salt issue, right? He signed the initial law. He said he would repeal it. And now he's attacking it as a giveaway to blue states. So he's been all over this.
I just want to get back to what you sort of alluded to earlier, which is beyond the specifics. This is about a moment in time and about where the party is right now. Because one of the hallmarks of Trump 2.0 so far has been everybody caving to Trump on pretty much everything within his party. And so the question is whether this is going to be different. So it's a legacy issue because this is his legislative agenda. And of course, the potential policy problem of if it doesn't happen, taxes will go up. But it's also a power issue.
So, I mean, what's in the background of this is he's basically implicitly promising to go after these members in the primary before they can even get to the general election. And also just on the SALT issue, additionally, they may be putting seats in play that weren't even competitive before 2 weeks ago. And so this is, I think, one thing to think about this long term is if he loses the House over this, whether or not they comply, that means subpoena power for Democrats. So there's a long-term outlook on this that it seems to me that the Republicans are day trading on this, just trying to get through each day rather than thinking long-term.
Look, you're talking about power. Two other P's here. I mean, this was not a policy pitch that the president made behind closed doors. This was personal. And there were Republicans. I was interested that Manu talked to Warren Davidson on the way up, because I talked to Warren Davidson this morning, who told me he was a no this morning on where things stand because he cares about the policy. And I said, well, what if Donald Trump leans on you and says, hey, buddy, Warren, I need you with me? And he said, look, if they don't change the policy in here, then I'm still a no. And he's, of course, a conservative who wants there to be more cuts to Medicaid, or more trims or reductions in spending, he would say. But look, I'm not sure how he wins them if they stick to their guns on the policy.
So we've been talking a lot about the SALT issue, but there are so many other variables, including the people on the policy. Warren Davidson's one of them, who doesn't want to add more to the debt and the deficit. And, we have these numbers just as a reminder. The last time Donald Trump was president, the debt and deficit got a lot worse. Now, to be fair, at the end of his first term, it was COVID. So if you can see the numbers there, it wasn't great. And in large part, it's because on this issue, his party didn't push back enough when he was focused on issues other than cutting the debt and deficit.
I mean, Donald Trump has not been fiscally conservative, right? He butted heads in that first term with Paul Ryan, whose entire agenda was cutting back entitlements. Trump has taken that off the table as best as he can. He doesn't want to touch the most popular parts of government. If he's going to cut things, he wants it to be unpopular things.
I would argue, though, that Trump has the best slogans. Nobody else has the slogans like he does about tax cuts. Most of the numbers he states are overstated or made up. He even said gas prices are $1.99 again today. That's still a lie. But the numbers are powerful to people who are not otherwise paying attention. His slogans are winning in many of these arguments.
Yeah, that's an important point.
President Donald Trump on the Hill this morning, drawing a line in the sand as he pushes Republicans to get on board with his sweeping tax and spending cut plan. One of the big sticking points within the Republican conference, Medicaid funding and work requirements. And sources tell CNN the president warned lawmakers in that closed-door meeting not to touch the program except for eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, after the meeting, Trump touted the party's unity despite several Republican holdouts of his, quote, big, beautiful bill.
I think we have unbelievable unity. I think we're going to get everything we want, and I think we're going to have a great victory. I think it was a really great. That was a meeting of love. Let me tell you, that was love in that room. There was no shouting. I think it was a meeting of love.
CNN's chief congressional correspondent Manu Raju is live for us on Capitol Hill. Manu, what are you hearing from behind closed doors? Was it a meeting of love?
Well, in the meeting, there was not a ton of pushback to the president's message, but out in the hallways is a much different story. And in the meetings with Mike Johnson, who's trying to hold together this very fragile coalition to get it out of the House in the next couple of days, that is a much different situation as well, because he's facing opposition, not just from conservative members who are concerned that this bill does not cut spending by enough, want to go deeper into the issue of Medicaid. Even as the president said to his colleagues, told Republicans in this meeting, don't F with Medicaid. That was his message inside the room, according to sources. But also some of those more moderate members who are worried about deeper cuts, who are also worried about the push to phase out green energy tax breaks that they say are critical to their constituents. And also this major sticking point, how much that taxpayers can deduct from the state and local taxes that they pay. That is being pushed in particular by New York Republicans who say their constituents are getting hammered by those taxes. But Republican hardliners say no way, because that will increase the deficit. And one of those Republican deficit hawks, Warren Davidson, in the immediate aftermath of that Trump meeting, told me he's still a no. But if this bill came to the floor right now, could you vote yes?
I couldn't vote for this bill right now. I mean, it grows deficit spending right now. So it does raise the debt limit. We need to do that. But it doesn't cut spending.
So it sounds like Trump didn't change your mind.
We'll see if he changes the bill.
You sound pretty frustrated right now.
I'm fired up, Manu. I'm here to fight for Long Islanders, regular middle-class people who are just trying to make a living. Those are the people who need to be included in this bill.
He said we're done negotiating with you guys. Did he not?
What I took that is, hey, everybody figure it out. Everybody get in a room and figure it out for the country and for your district.
And that last comment came from Congressman Nick LaLota, who's part of those New York Republican members who are pushing for the greater relief on the issue of so-called SALT, state and local tax deductions. He told me that he is still a no because despite all the last-minute haggling between the speaker and those holdouts, he said the latest offer on the table is, quote, insufficient. So therein lies the problem with Johnson. He's got a number of Republicans who still at the moment plan to vote no, but the speaker plans to try to move ahead with a procedural vote through a key committee as early as 1 a.m. tonight to get it moving to the floor. The question is, does he have the votes? At the moment, it appears not, but we'll see what changes between now and then.
Yeah, he wants to meet that self-imposed deadline of Memorial Day. We'll see if he gets it done before then. Manu Raju live on Capitol Hill. Thanks so much. Brianna?
Well, at that Republican meeting on the Hill today, it was a very warm welcome for President Trump, but he quickly had a blunt message for Republicans there in the House. Stop negotiating and get this bill done. One of the people in that room who posted this video is with us now, Florida Republican Congressman Jimmy Patronis. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. And it is, and we should note, you've been listening there, you heard from Congressman LaLota, but also you have Republicans in your conference sort of on both sides of the political spectrum of your conference who are holdouts at this point. So let's start with the House Freedom Caucus members like Congressman Andy Harris, who still want more time to vote on the bill. What's your message to them?
Well, at the end of the day, if we fail, which we're not going to, this could be a 60% increase on taxes of everyday citizens in America. We have to get this passed. The one big beautiful bill has to become reality. And I feel good that we're going to make it happen. The president had a lot of engagement with those members. And look, and did he call some of them out? Absolutely. But he also embraced them and tell them, look, guys, we may not get it done this time, but I'm not done being your president. I'm going to be here for 4 more years.
We won't get what done?
The other concerns they may have regarding either any other changes in policies that they're very passionate about.
Okay, so let's talk about one of those, which is something that concerns Congressman LaLota and others, the state and local taxes, this deduction cap. That's a huge issue in higher earning districts like New York, as we certainly understand. Why should someone like Congressman LaLota vote against the interests of their constituents?
I get it, but you know what? Every single day, Congressman LaLota is losing constituents to the state of Florida because we have no state income tax. So again, this is failed leadership in New York's Albany's capital. You've got governors in Illinois and New York and California that just do not know how to get their financial house in order. So this problem is not his problem. This is the governor of New York's problem and their inability to control their own finances.
Well, the SALT deduction, I mean, that doesn't pertain to what you just mentioned. In the case of that cap, Long Islanders, who he's talking about, would have more money if what he wants with the SALT cap were to happen. And maybe then less of them would go to your beautiful state. So what's the resolution on SALT?
Oh, again, I'm going to repeat my same answer. Last year, Florida had a net gain of 400,000 new Floridians. They're leaving high-tax states and going to low-tax states. This isn't Mr. LaLota's problem. This is the government of New York's problem. And again, hopefully they get their act in order.
It's an issue, but you understand how it works.
He is fighting. Oh yeah, I totally understand how it works, but also understand that people will leave with their feet and go to where they can keep more of their money. This is bigger than him. This is totally bigger than him. This is a problem at the state level.
So on Medicaid spending, you would like to see that Medicaid work requirement go into effect earlier than 2029. You have, according to the latest Kaiser Family Foundation data, almost 140,000 constituents on Medicaid, roughly 1 out of every 6 people in your district. Will any of them lose Medicaid coverage?
So the work requirement is focused on expansion with able-bodied males, okay? So in Florida, we never expanded. So we would like to see the waste, fraud, and abuse that's taking place. And I do believe there is a significant amount of waste in Medicaid. I was a CFO of the state of Florida. We had the best fiscal health in the history of our state, but we're also a state that did not expand. We lived within our means.
So what are the limits of able-bodied people who should have to meet this work requirement? For example, should a young adult male in your district who is in the throes of addiction be expected to meet those requirements while in rehab, for example?
Well, currently right now, a young adult male in the state of Florida is not eligible for Medicaid unless he's disabled or has some other type of disability that's given
Exactly.
that pathway. It's in the other states where the state of Florida would like to see better use of the taxpayers' dollars, where it's not wasted and people are taking advantage of a system that they should not have any eligibility for. The waste, fraud, and abuse is, again, what Florida is most focused on.
I'm asking if he should be eligible and facing a medical issue like that.
Well, in the case, in the state of Florida, I'm not an advocate for expansion of Medicaid. I've never supported it. So that individual does not have access to expanded guaranteed Medicaid health benefits if he's an able-bodied male, because it's not part of Florida's acceptance into that program.
That when you're looking more broadly across the country then, if you see, because obviously it's not just about Florida, so let's talk about that more broadly. Perhaps that's something we can discuss here. If you're looking at work requirements, and so you have someone, and there are many cases, I think everyone sort of knows someone or knows a family affected by something like this, and right now they're relying on that. Should that be considered able-bodied? Should that be considered to fall under that work requirement in that instance?
So my concerns are with Medicaid dollars, they're precious to come by, and it doesn't get any cheaper for healthcare delivery. But when you've got able-bodied males that have the ability to go out and seek employment in order to maybe secure health insurance to the private sector, that frees up dollars for disabled, for elderly, for women. So again, this is where my heart is.
Is that person able-bodied?
I want
Sir,
those
that's my
dollars
question,
to go
though. But Congressman, that's my question. Is that an able-bodied person? Someone who is in rehab dealing with addiction? I mean, would you consider that an able-bodied person?
The able-bodied person I'm talking about is the 25-year-old who's sitting on his couch playing Xbox.
And you think there's just a ton of those?
That's the person that I feel like should. I don't know how many of them exist, but I know there is going to be a population that are getting that benefit when they really could be out in the workforce and securing it through the private sector, which is better for everybody. I like those dollars to be available for those who most need it, not those that actually have a pathway to get access to health care because they're capable of seeking work that provides it for them.
Arkansas tried to implement work requirements for Medicaid in 2018. Over 18,000 people lost coverage before the law was overturned by a federal court. Are you comfortable with those kind of numbers nationwide?
Well, I think we have got a system that obviously needs to be tighter, because what we've got Medicaid
Are those
as is,
acceptable
it's
numbers?
difficult to make. Well, again, I want Medicaid to be sustainable. Making it sustainable, making sure that we take
Well, that may
care
make it
of those that
sustainable. Are you
most
okay with that
vulnerable.
kind of number?
Again, I have no idea what the finances are of Arkansas if they had some other way to absorb it. But I know this, when it comes to Medicaid, it's the single largest part of the Florida budget. We have got to manage it because it's not getting any smaller. But if you are able to go out and secure private health insurance because you're able to seek employment, you know what? That's not a bad way to help us make sure those dollars are going to those people who truly need it.
So if you're looking at numbers like that to get to that point, I mean, this is sort of a state case study in terms of populations and in terms of people having, whatever work requirement and health issue or not, you can expect that in other places there would be a lot of people losing coverage. Is that acceptable?
No, look, it's plausible. I'm not a citizen of Arkansas. Don't intend on ever moving there, and don't know what they have had to deal with that. We're not familiar with the court case you're speaking to, but I do know Florida. I know Florida Medicaid, and I know that we did not expand so we can make sure we had a manageable system on our hands. And what I'm concerned with is in these other states where they have expanded, they have created a monster that is going to be difficult to manage. Look, I don't want to cut anybody's benefits, but I definitely want to make sure that the elderly, our seniors, our women, our children, that they always have a robust safety net that always takes care of them. That is the purpose of Medicaid.
All right, Congressman Jimmy Patronis, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
President Trump goes to Capitol Hill to win support for his sweeping spending bill with tax cuts. But House Republican hardliners are threatening to stall his agenda, and moderates are making their own demands. Keep in mind, just a tiny handful of GOP no votes could potentially doom the entire bill. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Carlos Jimenez of Florida. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. How did the president's message play in the room? You were there. You listened to what he had to say. You got the reaction from your Republican colleagues. What stood out to you from his remarks?
Oh, I thought he was on his A game. Very engaging, very funny, and got his point across. We need to unite. The big, beautiful bill is something that has to pass. Failure is not an option, and we've got to get together and get it done. And the message resonated very well, and I think that, look, I've always said that at the end, failure is not an option. We're going to get this thing done.
Yeah, he kept saying, and when he emerged from that meeting, he said it was a meeting of love. He kept saying that, a meeting of love. Several GOP hardliners, on the other hand, including House Freedom Caucus Chair Andy Harris and Congressman Clay Higgins and Thomas Massie, say they were unmoved by the president's comments. Is this bill in jeopardy of not passing? Because you only need, 3 or 4 Republicans to vote no, and it doesn't get over the finish line.
We're going to get this done. Like I said, failure is not an option. If we fail, then the American taxpayer, America, will be facing the largest tax increase in its history. And that's not going to happen under our watch and under our governance. And so we're going to get to the finish line. We may have some issues around the edges, but they're just around the edges that we may have slight disagreements on right now. But at the end of the day, we're going to get this done. And the president, reiterated again how important it is for the American people that we do get this thing done and we get this bill passed, send it on to the Senate so that he can, and then they can pass it on to the president.
So what do you think, Congressman, what do you think needs to change in order to assure that it will pass?
I think what needs to change is some people need to understand that they're not going to get everything they want. There are things in this bill that I may not like, and there's going to be things in the bills that obviously everybody is not going to like, but the vast majority of this bill is good. It's good for the American people. It makes sure that we don't have a tax increase for the American people, unleashes American energy independence and dominance. It's good for the families. It's good for business, and it's a huge step forward for the American economy. That's the good. It far outweighs any of the negative small items that we may have personally. So, you can't let perfect be the enemy of good, and this bill is very, very good.
Some of your moderate Republicans in states like New York and California, they want to raise the cap on the amount of state and local taxes that people could deduct from their federal returns. Others say more needs to be done to reduce the cost of the bill. How do President Trump and the Speaker, Mike Johnson, find a middle ground here?
Well, we will find a middle ground that will satisfy those in the blue states that are asking for an additional state and local tax deduction, and those that want the more spending cuts. Again, these are issues around the edges. They're not the main part of this bill, and so I am confident that we will find that sweet spot. Speaker Johnson has a great ability of getting people together. He's well respected by everybody in our conference, and I have complete confidence that he'll get the job done. And I know that the president has confidence in him too. So, like I said, failure is not an option here.